There is something endearing about watching two of the best players in the world, quite literally rank 1 and 2, dressed in esports jerseys,
Yep.
covered with sponsors and playing for the highest stakes. I just find it very, very endearing after watching chess for 25 years without seeing that.
Yeah, it's come such a long way. I've been a fan of the esports space for a while, and to just see it like unify like this is pretty exciting as a fan and also a chess player myself. So very, very cool. Looking at this game here, we've said enough. It is a must win, but knight g5, is this tactical theme here?
Knight g5 is crazy. The idea of knight to g5 was that if the move bishop g7 had been played, there was some e5 tricks maybe brewing in the position. Some sort of, and instead of that, we have a repositioning to h3 and a close Sicilian-esque type of game. Magnus has played this as well with the knight on h3, and white will try to generate some sort of attack in the long run.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm familiar with this idea that Hikaru did knight g5, knight h3, and then you kind of induce h6. You also get your knight out of the way. And amazingly, the knight can operate very decently from the f2 square. I feel like knights on f2 and f7 are some of my favorite pieces in chess. They're always like covering squares you don't expect them to. And in true Hikaru Nakamura style, you need a win. How about g4 and a massive kingside attack? I mean, this is definitely playing for the fans, playing for the result here. I like it.
Absolutely. And he has to win. Of course, this is not the grand final, but this is Hikaru putting as much pressure as possible. Magnus responding in a very principled way. If a guy is charging at you with pawns, you can either meet him head on, or you can attack on the other side of the board or down the center. G5. This is all epic stuff we're about to see. Last game we saw Magnus attack 99, Hikaru defense 98. That was literally what it came down to. And this game, Hikaru might be turning it around and trying to test Magnus's defensive skills.
Yeah, knight h7. So threatening to maybe take on g5, but also maybe just lock it up with pawn to h5. I definitely think the move f5, at some point needs to make an appearance. And let's not forget about development. Knight b1 to d2 to f3, maybe into g5. White needs to make sure all the pieces are part of the attack here, because you go too crazy without developing, it's probably not going to work out.
I don't really agree. The move queen g4 is a mistake. I mean, it's at a best minus 0.4. This is just like a very natural move to me. And Magnus now giving Hikaru some things to think about him on. You said knight d2, knight f3, but if you start abandoning your queen side, it could come under fire. And there's moves like c4 that also question the integrity of your structure. So not an easy position at all. I mean, in a bullet game, this is like a 70% chance that Hikaru wins it, even against Matt in bullet, because it's much easier to attack in bullet chess. But with 8 minutes on the clock, it's not so simple.
Exactly. I'm really surprised that Magnus is just so confident. I mean, maybe that's what it's like to be number one. He sees queen g4 aimed directly at his king, and he's like, sure, b4, just queen side move. I'm not scared at all. Queen g3, posturing on the other side of the board here, but it feels like Magnus is just saying, okay, you got your stuff, I got my stuff on the queen side. I would have been wondering about king h8, like, should we get out of the g file? But instead, he's trying to make sure he has his own counterplay so that Hikaru can't just all out on the king side. He's got threats to think about in the center.
Yeah, and apparently b takes c3 was wrong, but apparently b takes c3 by white was wrong, and apparently bishop a6 are wrong. Everything is wrong. Computer's just hating on everything. Bishop a6 is not even a threat, let it be known. That's
right. But it does stop things like bishop to e3, which maybe is a natural developing move. Knight d2, knight f3 can no longer be played because of that pawn. And if you play c4, you're opening not only bishop g7 as a serious move, but knight d4.
Yes. Knight d2 I still like, and on top of that, if you play rook d1, it's almost a step backwards. The rook is trying to be on the f file. It's not really trying to be going that way. Knight c4 is a big question. I don't know if you play a move like this. You attack the queen, you attack the pawn on d6, but you voluntarily eviscerate your pawn structure. Maybe you don't care because you're attacking anyway, but in the long run, it will cost you. So
Yeah, I think I would really consider that, especially given the constraints of like needing to win. Knight c4, queen takes c3. That starts to get more interesting. That I'm not 100% sure about.
Yeah, and then you would have had to play bishop b2. This feels a little slow. I mean, it feels like it's all proper, but by the way, we're living in a world in which rook b8, rook b2 is the solution. I
Well,
I don't
that
know.
yeah, that makes
Again,
perfect sense.
like, and I will take a look. We have the okay, that's not the best move. Queen b6 targeting. I would never play queen b6, but I guess it. Yeah,
So
I
what
don't.
does rook b8? Let's just say is very 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 natural. I'm wondering if White's playing knight b3 because rook b1 does not feel like
Yeah,
the move. I mean,
no,
ever. Like this one
no.
drops a2. The other rook to b1 is just nonsense. Like
And
you're not achieving anything.
and by the way, in that position, the best move is rook takes b2, which is really funny.
Yeah, that does not surprise me. Queen c3, knight d4, d3 hanging. This is disaster.
Yeah. So that's why Hikaru played it slow. He didn't try to play. That's why he's going for bishop b2. But queen, was that a
I
that was
mean,
on purpose?
I think, I mean, it's
Oh,
a double attack. D3 and B2 threatened. Pawn A4 looks like a move you'd want to throw in here. And then the interesting thing is the queen, I guess, I was going to say queen B3, maybe queen B7, but one of the moves that still attacks the bishop.
yes. Interesting. So this was Magnus's idea. He did not want to put the queen on b6, where the knight would have come with the tempo. Interesting. This looks like a strange configuration, but then you look at who's playing it and you go, okay, maybe I don't understand chess.
Yeah, one of the funny things I was considering was A4, queen B3, and then rook A3 by white, and then you go back to B7. And then you're like, well, now maybe the rook on A3 is a bit ridiculous.
It's a good point because then white has to spend at least one more move going backwards. But overall, I think this is a win for Hikaru as far as the opening goes, and you kind of don't want to lose the bishop on b2 though. You don't want to take the knight. I'm not really sure what
Mm-hmm.
you can play.
And by the way, like the engine is sitting here saying white's got a good position. First of all, around equal, but slightly better. Like I'm looking at the position and feeling like maybe Magnus is making stuff happen on the queen side. That's where all the action has been over the last 5 moves. But let's not forget that the king side still exists and f5 is still going to be played.
Okay, Hikaru has given up a real mercenary of the dark squares. The bishop on b2 going down. This knight looks
Yeah.
ridiculous, but I got news for you. This bishop is also pretty bad. And the
Yep.
knight has an easier path home, not to mention a path into the position. I would go knight
Mm-hmm.
c6 here. I'm looking at stuff like that. e5 is a very bold move. Rook b1, knight c6 looks pretty appetizing.
I mean, how are you going to stop me from playing f5 here? That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, as well. As well. Maybe there's a queen d2 and a queen trade. He feels confident with something like that.
That's very interesting. I like that idea a lot, and I think you might be exactly right.
Hitting the
Making
knight,
sure
ending
that
this.
the
No queen, Hikaru's not checkmating here, so
That's
f5
right.
could be not good.
That's right. Yeah, maybe knight c6.
Uh,
Let's see. Queen d2, definitely possible here.
it is the top line of the computer. Knight c6, queen e3, you trade. I wonder what Hikaru has in mind.
Well, there is pawn takes g6. So queen d2, pawn takes g6. I guess you're just taking back and going king h8, and it's almost like, well, thanks for opening the g file. Maybe I'll use it to checkmate you now.
Yeah, there's all sorts of lines where the king gets out of the way. Also, yeah, look, we were looking at queen d2. There's also king h8 now. There's king g7 now. There's a million choices and only 5 minutes to play them.
Yeah, I really like this queen d2 idea. Roughly 5 minutes apiece here for these two. So still a very healthy amount of time, considering the position is still very complicated. And if queen d2, queen e3 happens, the game's really going to simplify. And I have to say, Levitt, the outlook for Hikaru for a win after a queen e3 happens is I'm really having trouble believing.
Yeah, wow. Magnus going into this line, losing the pawn, and potentially creating his own counterplay on this file. He is a pawn down, but where is that pawn? It's right
Hikaru
here.
just smacked himself on the head there. He said, "What am I thinking? Queen e3, rook g8. I don't know. Everything is loose here."
Yeah, apparently the best move there was bishop e3 and queen takes pawn, just greedily taking the pawn back.
That's so crazy. I would never.
But okay, queen h5. And
so queen takes d6. Is there rook takes g2?
Yeah, that looks like a problem.
There's a hanging bishop on a6 at the end. There's a hanging e5 pawn with check. It's just hard to navigate the full calculation, but I would at least be very concerned about it.
Absolutely. Queen d6, rook takes, then you bring the second rook, and that whole sequence is actually going to end up being slightly better for black, but Magnus is not interested in that. He's just interested in a draw because that would end the match with a 2.5, 1.5 victory. So, yeah, queen h5 is the only way because you need to keep this knight protected. But I'd be worried if I'm Hikaru. I mean, this bishop is coming back very quickly, and if the pawn on d3 falls, everything is falling.
Right. Let's pay attention here. Queen h5, yeah, definitely the safer move, more standard for sure. Everything looked like it was falling apart there with the sacrifice. I wish the bishop on a6 was a participant, right? If you could only just get that piece into the game, everything would be different. And I'm sure white feels the same about the knight on b3, right? Put it on d5, the whole game is different. Put it on f5, it's completely over. So both of these strong players missing a strong piece.
Wow, Magnus is still going for it. He absolutely did not need to do that. What has he missed? He has missed rook f3. Rook f3 is not only a defensive move against the attack on the knight, it's winning for white.
So rook f3, queen e2, kind of pinning the rook to the queen. I guess there you can just go rook g1 or something.
Yeah, just rook g1, and the knight comes back, and black does not have enough attacking pieces.
Is that glass from Magnus really big? Like, is that just a massive water glass?
Yeah,
and just took a drink, and I was like, "What's going on here?"
Oh my goodness, he missed rook g3. Rook g3. He's forced Hikaru into finding a queen sacrifice checkmate him on.
Wait, what? Magnus played this. Hikaru is like, he thinks he's lost. He's behaving like he's lost. He doesn't see rook g3 yet. Magnus played it like it was winning. This is such a crazy...
He resigned! Oh my god, he resigned!
He resigned. He's going to look at the game review now. Oh my goodness, he resigned in a winning position. And it smiles all around. It's just the most insane result in chess. The two best players in the world, neither one of them saw the best move. Levy, this is insane.
This is, you could not script this any differently. Let's put it this way, Amon. If this was a betting line on one of the sports betting partners, people would be real mad right now.